Okay, so we've got all of those lighting elements integrated. They look really cool. What I'm going to do now is go further into the mood and grade on the bubble sole and on the shoe. I consider all these effects part of the mood and grade process, even though we did have to roll up our sleeves and get back into the cleanup on that sole. It is still, a creative part of the process. So I'm going to move into making that bubble sole really kind of glow and give it a little bit of a surface. I have an idea how I'm going to do that. So I'm going to start by just bringing up a contrast curve and seeing if I can just crank some good contrast into that area. Yeah, that certainly pops it open, huh? That's nice. Normally I keep, like I said, color and luminosity separate, and a curve, when you add contrast like that, it is going to shift it might shift the hue just slightly, but mostly what it's going to do is increase some of that saturation in there, because in the RGB workspace, value and hue are so closely tied together in the way that channels are. I'm not too worried about that here, but if you wanted to control that hue shift, you could set this curve, as I did in some of the other parts, to luminosity, and that'll remove that. And so now what I really want to do, this area in the back of the shoe looks nice and luminous, and I kind of get the feeling that it's a plastic surface back here, but up in front that gets just lost a little bit, and I'd like some kind of presence of the surface of that clear plastic. So what I'm going to do is just fake it, because we don't have anything here that's creating that. What I'm going to do is just see if I can create a fake reflection in here, and all that has to be is an area of brightness that looks like the front of the plastic is catching the light that's coming down from above. So I didn't see this captured in any of Adam's shots. So sometimes you just have to fake it, and I'll show you how to do that real quick and easy. So I'm going to create just a path, because once again, I want something that I can come back to and manipulate if I need to. And I'm going to create a new group. Let's put it in bubble sole, because I only want it to be in there. I'm going to call it highlight. Open up a curve. And I'm going to drop the black point straight off, because I know when these reflections hit surfaces, that they kind of obscure all the information underneath. So I know I just want to absolutely clip all the information off underneath there, and that's the kind of curve you need to do that. So I'm going to fill that, and I'm just going to brush this in. Notice how I set up these masks. In the highlight, it's completely contained in a totally clean mask, and then I go in and I do the more detailed by hand crafting on a mask inside of it. By nesting masks in this way, you really keep that sense of non-destructive workflow in your mask setups. Always try to do that. So it's already looking pretty cool. That mask edge is a little bit sharp. I'm going to duplicate this curve because I want to add a little bit more even. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually paint it back out with some black so there's a little bit more right at the top. It's really starting to look super clean now. Just by adding that level of like contrast to the lighting, it just totally pops that feature. That's what we always want to do, is show all these technologies or features just in the best light that they can be shown in. And a lot of times that has to do with adding stuff that isn't even there in the first place. So the only thing that's left to do really is feather that mask a bit. I'm going to go into the mask property. Maybe even a little bit too much. Let's just do 1 pixel for now and see how that sits. So I'm going to just bump it up. Does that work? Yeah, just want to bump it up like a little bit. We'll see, that might be a little bit too much. I'm just going to back that off a little bit. Yeah, a little more subtle is better, I think. All right, cool, that's pretty clean. I really like that added element in there. I think that really just rounds out that whole area and gives you a feeling that that's actually a bubble there. We had to fake it a little bit, but that's fine. If it works, it works. So I think we have a few finishing steps on the mood and grade, and then we go into our final finish work, and that should be pretty quick, and we're almost ready to send this off to Adam. Okay. Couple quick things. I think we can add some volume to the swoosh here. I'm going to bring up a curve in my swoosh group. I want to darken it. Nice, that already pops it a little bit. I don't want to do too much, but I'm going to brush this in. So I'm going to fill the curve with black. Go to my brush, I'm 40%. I'm just going to brush that in. Just gives it that extra presence, nice gradient to it, adds a little bit of drama. I'm gonna go into my base. And I'm gonna open up the heel just a bit there, because that was in Adam's file, and I'm not going to use his other exposure because I think I can just do this fine with a curve. Yeah, it looks fine. I want to pop the colors just a little bit more. So I'm going to bring up a hue saturation, and I'm going to target the reds. And I'm going to bump up the opacity of the reds just a bit. And I think I want to shift them a little bit away from the blue. Now, when you're getting into product color changes, it's nice to have the product right there in front of you. This is a big thing to remember, because if not, you're really guessing at color. I don't know if this is a warm red or a cool red. I don't know if it's more pink or more orange. So right now I'm guessing. If I had the product in front of me, I'd be able to accurately match that color, and that's an important thing to always consider. So if you're working on a shoe like this, you want to ask the client to send you the shoe so they know that you're matching accurate color. So I'm just going to shift this a couple points toward yellow to make it slightly more orange. And then I'm going to target the blues. I'm going to bump them up just a bit too and shift them away from red, just slightly cooler, just by 3, maybe 4 points. So let's turn this on and off, see what it does. It just amps it up a little bit, and it pushes those colors away from each other just to add a little bit more contrast. What I mean by away from each other is in different directions on the color wheels. So they're now a little bit cooler on the toe and a little bit warmer in the red, which is just added contrast. I think there's a little bit of a paleness on the top of the liner. It's getting a little bit washed out up there, so I'm just gonna bump that up a little bit with a curve to add a little bit more body in there, and I'm gonna brush that in. And a little bit up here too, now that I'm looking at it. So let's crank that up just a bit. That's better. Let's turn that on and off. Yeah, I think that's nicer. But you know what? I think that the toe is separating a little bit too much. I mean, these two colors, this blue and this orange, are direct complements, so they're going to be very, very high contrast. In order to get the toe to sit in a little bit better, I think we can lighten it just a bit on the top. So we're going to do that in the base. Remember, I'm going to keep all of my luminosity moves underneath my color moves. And if I get to the point where I have lots of layers stacked up in here, and I'll just show you right now for demonstration, I'm going to group these into two groups called color and value. I use value and luminosity interchangeably, so you can choose to call these whatever makes most sense to you. So I'm going to lighten that. See, it's already a nicer cooperation between the color and value of the toe with the background. So let's brush that in. Yeah, I think that looks a lot better. All right, that's great. So that's pretty much all I want to do right now with this shoe. I think it's looking awesome. I think it's addressed all of the direction that Adam had. If we look at it next to Adam's rough comp, it's better. And that's exactly what we want. So this is an important point about your round one and working with your artist comp. You don't want to just meet the standards or the quality or the creativity that's in the comp. That's not your goal. So your goal as the retouching professional, as the artist, is to take that rough comp and that rough direction and at the very least give them something better. This is a big thing to remember. You don't want to give them something different, but it has to be noticeably better than what they sent you. That should always be a benchmark. So your job is to do everything professionally and the highest quality, but also to be creative in a way that you're showing your client something that maybe they didn't think of, something to just increase that value by at least 10%. If you can do that on round one, you've done your job. So I think we've achieved that here. I'm going to do a few more finishing touches, and then we're going to send this to Adam for a round one review.